Good morning and welcome to Morning Java, brought to you as always by our friends at the Get Go Cafe and Market, where if you order on the app, and by app I'm referring to the Giant Eagle app, they will bring it out to your car. It is curbside pickup. It's about as simple and pain free as it gets.
Yeah, it's great, DK. I've taken advantage of it a few times, and man, oh man, is it quick? It's fast, and it gets me some food when I really need it.
At all hours, by the way, they're back to being open around the clock. Carter and I have a lot to talk about today. We're going to start with familiar territory, and that's football. The National Football League has put out word, the way they usually put out word, that they're going to find a way to have mini camps. That they're opening up these facilities. Coaches are in there next week. Yet again, football is leading the way. And I can throw colleges in there too, because Pitt put out an announcement that on June 8th, they're going to be back in play. What is it about football? Why is that? Why has football been the most? And it's don't tell me it's Goodell, because this isn't exactly some inspirational leader here.
No, I mean it's definitely not Goodell, but you think about throughout history, it's when football has become the number one in the market. There's more pressure on them to get these things right. There's more pressure on them to get out, and they're in a position where because they do so well at things, they have more resources. They have more, like everyone else is under pressure right now. You know, baseball's under pressure, basketball's under pressure, hockey's under pressure. Football is just like, you know what? You guys can try and fail during the time that everyone's supposed to be watching you. Right now, all football has to do is just take their time, study what's right, study what's wrong, and come out and make these decisions. But I think that they're taking their time. They're making sure that they're abiding, by safety regulations. They're making sure that they're not putting people at risk, but they're also saying, you know what? We got to make sure that we do have something that's consumable when the season kicks off. And it starts with letting these players get into the facilities and letting them, start to get acclimated again with the game. Because as a football player will tell you, there's being in shape and then there's being in football shape.
In football shape, there's a couple of logistical advantages that the NFL in particular has. And you mentioned one of them, which is the timing. They don't have games right now. They're not missing anything. And the other one, and you also alluded to this, and that's money.
Yeah.
They've got more of it than others. So when challenged back in April with the unthinkable to hold a draft when nobody could even move from one room to the next in a lot of households, they had the money, not just to pull it off, but to pull it off this big, beautiful production. Still, there's something about attitude that falls in line with this. Football has, how do I put this? It's not an arrogance about it. Baseball has an arrogance about it. Football has more of it, just knows where it belongs in the public consciousness. You know what I mean? I don't think it sees itself above that or below it. Baseball, I think so. We're going to get to that in a little bit. Baseball, I think, is oblivious to where it actually ranks in the public consciousness. But football is aware of it and embraces it.
No, I agree about that. I think it's aware that it commands. It's the king of American sports. You know, it knows it's at the top of the food chain, and when you know that, you get to make stronger moves off of that, and you're not as pressed to make desperate moves. A sport that might be younger might be feel like, look at the XFL. They were forced to make tough decisions early on because they were trying to figure things out. The NFL, they're not forced into anything. They're going to be able to do what they want when they want
it,
and put when they want it, and how they want to. And the whole time, they're still going to be making money. And they know this because they know that that's their number one goal. They know that when the fall comes, everything flips to football. No matter what's going on, in baseball's postseason in any given year, no matter what's going on in the world, everyone's going to stop on Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays, and for college football, Saturdays, and they're going to be talking about what's going on the gridiron.
It's not going to be labor either. There's not going to be a labor issue in it. That's part of what's amazing here, because the NFL has a pact, has a salary cap in addition to that. So you're not going to see the bickering between revenue sharing means. So they already have revenue sharing. They already have salary cap. They understand where it is. But beyond that, home games revenue is not anywhere near as important to the NFL as it is to other sports because they've only got 8 of them, and the TV money is enormous. Just a
Yeah.
different world. All right, Carter, baseball. Um, let's just say that they don't reach an agreement. Let's just say that they, not shoot themselves in the foot, shoot themselves in both feet,
Yeah.
and then in the kneecaps, and then everywhere else. What happens to the sport? Never mind the individual teams, whether it's the Pirates or the Yankees or whoever. What happens to the actual sport? Where does it go?
It's a very good question. The demographics of the people that watch the sport get older and older.
57 years old is the average age.
Yeah,
57 years old is the average age of the baseball fan in
yeah,
this country.
and that's the thing is that you got to be looking forward and trying to grab the people in even not even my generation, the generation that's younger than me right now, that's coming up, the 18 to 20-ish year olds, and what they're doing. But when you look at what people are paying attention to, baseball has already fallen out of it. They're tough. There's not as many celebrations. There's not as much. It takes longer to get through a game. It's not the same kind of flair that you get in the other three major sports in the world now. It's history, it's tradition, still attracts people. There's still people from those demographics that come and they want to consume the game. But when you make things harder, and this is what the NFL is another reason why they're the top, when you make things harder to even get to the season, people are going to react negatively to it. Now, people have said for years, oh, this is going to destroy the baseball, or that's going to destroy baseball. People said that with the lockout in the 90s. And, it certainly impacted things, but it didn't stop it. Now, if there's no season this year because of this, you have to ask with what's going on, especially because everyone's so hungry for sports right now, Dayon. Say we get the fall and you get the NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, you get college sports, you get the NFL, and
Everything
it's just
except
the
baseball.
sports, everything, and baseball's just sitting there.
Just sitting there.
There's just going to be a whole generation of people that are like, forget it.
See ya. Yeah, I mean, it's. I'll take this a step further. Let's say that when we talk about the way to get the younger demographic engaged in baseball, I've written about this stuff too. You're right about faster games. I don't know where I am on bat flips and eccentricities and stuff like that. I don't. I'd like to think that that's not something that sells the sport, but if it is, it is. How about this? How about something just as simple as this? Major League Baseball makes untold gazillion dollars on what's called their advanced media properties. And most of that is just selling the product online. And that means paying for video. Why? Like, if you know that that's where the younger demographic is and that you're in trouble with that, you can't look across the way at the NFL or even the NHL or the NBA and say, well, they're charging for their games. Well, of course, we have to charge for ours, or we have to black out everything. Why not just say, you know what, for 1 year, not necessarily, maybe this year, okay, for 1 year, we're just going to come watch our games, okay? We know where you're watching things. We know where you're consuming content. We're coming to you. We're going to get that advantage for a year. They would never admit to that because that's actually what it would involve, isn't it? They'd have to admit that they're struggling in this regard.
I do think that there's some bit of stubbornness there. That's like, you know what, we've been doing it the way we've been doing it, and we're going to do it the way we do it. And I think there's always that comes in with some people's decision making, and maybe baseball's stuck in that. Maybe there's the people that call those shots, they feel like they don't have to bend in those places. But you have to find ways to be innovative. I think one thing that I've always credited the Penguins for doing. And I talked to Kevin Acklin about this a couple times, that I've always been impressed by how the Penguins reach out to their fans and they make sure, especially the younger generation, they're like, hey, we want to show you what we're about. We want to show you this, the student rushes and the things that go on with the student rushes, the promotions.
About building rinks. They build
exactly.
rinks.
The effort to expand their market and expand the love of their game. that's something that you have to appreciate, at least from the Penguin standpoint. I won't speak for all NHL
No,
franchises.
but no, the Penguins they're not the only franchise, but they're extraordinary still in
Right.
that regard, and they were among the first. And the other thing, I mean, look, David Morehouse would get mad at me for saying this, using this term, but they're almost militant about it.
Hmm.
They're not. They don't view it as like we're doing some great thing for the community. They go out there just very aggressively and here's a
Yeah.
hockey rink. Look over here, another hockey rink, because they want kids playing hockey, because they want kids to grow up. There's a long view to their business plan, and there always has been. It's amazing. Baseball, no,
And imagine if
nothing.
in
Carter, even the stuff that they do, I'm
if you,
sorry, like the
no, yeah.
RBI program and the stuff like that is so half-hearted. I was about to use another term. Okay, it is. There's not much that goes into it. They have some wonderful individual initiatives. The one that comes to mind is the Miracle League program that Bob Nutting is actually directly really passionate about. He actually goes to each one of these Miracle League openings, and they're beautiful for children with challenges. Uh, if you've seen the pictures and the videos from those scenes, but I'm talking about just saying, damn it, we're gonna grow baseball. We're gonna just go build a field, whether it's in Mount Lebanon, Sewickley, Homewood, Wilkinsburg, whatever. Build baseball fields. Like, do it for an actual reason. You know
and
what I mean? Not just for the camera opportunity.
and not just baseball fields, but get the bats in the hands of the kids and teach them how to use them.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to be in a family where my parents pushed me out to play sports and to do activities. I went to the Shady Side Boys and Girls Club where I learned how to play baseball and hit a ball and play the game. But that opportunity isn't for everybody. But I'll tell you right now, just down the street from me, at the Homewood baseball field, we've got the Homewood Dogs. They're a baseball and softball team that they go out and they compete. And I know some of the coaches there, they work hard every year to make sure that some kids get that opportunity, but not all kids get that opportunity, and not a lot of kids get that opportunity because with baseball you got to have the right shoes, you got to have a bat, you got to have a ball, you got
You got
to
to find 18 people too, which is always the hardest part.
and that's not easy.
And umpires.
If baseball make more concerted efforts to reach people and get people to love the game the way that other sports are doing, I think it helps their market for the long run. But at this point, they still are in a position where they could recover if they have a season and they're able to do this. But you have to think, if stuff like this continues for years and you start to see over the next decade or so other sports continue those efforts and the MLB not try to catch up, maybe at some point we're talking about them dropping to the fourth most popular sport in the country.
So Carter, I went downtown
Oh,
the day after the protests and the riots and the looting and everything else that happened. And I'm happy to say a couple of things. One is that I got my comic books.
of course.
Of course, I got my new GL. And of course, this is the other new GL. It's actually the same book with a different cover because
Collector.
when you are a
Collector.
geek, you go the full mile.
You're not. You're a nerd. You're a nerd. There's a difference.
Nerd, geek, I don't care what you want to call it. The bottom line is that Ides was open. There were some businesses that were open. Downtown was cleaned up beautifully by the Department of Public Works and about roughly 100 volunteers, from what we heard. But you also look around and you see that businesses are literally boarded up. Literally, I mean, because they're as a defense mechanism for whatever else might follow. One of the topics that I wanted to touch on with you after the piece that you wrote for us yesterday that was going to remain open-ended because you and I were writing until 4:30 in the morning.
We were pretty late.
And it's appreciated. We're like both like, there's no way we're going to sleep until
I needed some coffee, but yeah, we had to do that.
Yeah, and one of the things that was going to remain open-ended was this idea that the people who were doing the damage or who did the inciting at the protests were from out of town or were people who didn't belong at this protest. So when the Department of Public Safety puts out the arrest report on Sunday, it says 44 people were arrested. 16 were from the city of Pittsburgh. A bunch of others were from the surrounding areas. And then there were a handful that were far out as Newcastle, Lawrence County, whatever, right? And then everyone goes, aha, see, the police chief and the mayor were lying when they said they were all from out of town. Please explain why they were not lying, why it was actually accurate that these people did not belong here and did not belong in this protest.
A lot of this is because the police, and the mayor's office, and the people that work with this city, they know the people that actually protest, because this wasn't the first protest. And I can say that because I've been part of some of those protests for years. When Antoine Rose died, when Leon Ford was shot, and several times, even when it wasn't a Pittsburgh involved shooting, when Trayvon Martin's verdict that came out on George Zimmerman, there were protests in the city about that. But when that happens, there are leaders, there are people that communicate, and there's
directly. Like they're
directly.
actually communicating directly with the police. They don't
Yeah.
just show up one day and
Yeah.
go, "I hate your guts."
It's right.
There's an actual communication. There's a dialogue. Police. I don't know about other police departments. I know that the Pittsburgh police have people that are assigned to do exactly this.
Yeah.
There's
there's
deal
a
with the
concerted-
community. Go ahead.
Right. There's a concerted effort to make sure that when we're organizing, when people are meeting, and I'm not a leader in those, but I simply come and I help out when I can, because but there are plenty of good people that I've met that know how to handle this, that they know, when we marched with Antoine Rose, the police were right with us, but they gave us the space to say and do what we needed to say and do to help grieve about the situation and talk about the situation. And
even though asterisk here, Antoine Rose and everything else happened in East Pittsburgh, which is a separate city with a separate and very small police force. So the Pittsburgh police and everybody else here cooperated with that, even though they literally had nothing to do with it. In fact, were unfairly branded on a national level.
Right. But
for something they literally had nothing to do with.
Right. And that's actually more to the point of what we're talking about here, because that may have not happened in Pittsburgh proper, but that still touched our spirit. And and the people that responded to it were of Pittsburgh and of the people that were actually fighting for it. The people that were there yesterday ruining things, it didn't matter exactly what part of Allegheny County they lived in. What mattered is, where have you been this whole time?
Well, they weren't part of this community. They weren't part of this cause.
Exactly.
Okay, and I'm not just saying that because they weren't black.
Exactly.
Okay, that's actually not the divisional point.
They didn't come here to support anything that this movement has been supporting, because again, this has happened for years. We've seen
the hijacking.
But here's the thing: is that we have made sure that the hijacking hasn't happened before. It's just yesterday it got out of hand, and I think that when I look at all the times that I've been a part of the protest, it's been organized, it's been peaceful. When you see the way they did those things, and again, white people come to our support before. They march with us just like Asian people march with us, just like Hispanic people march with us. There's a wide diversity of people that support us in those moments. But none of those times do those people come in and smash things and try to instigate people. I mean, you saw those videos. Those kids were giving the finger to the actual protesters. They weren't part of the protest.
These isn't hearsay or
no.
Or it's right there with video and audio. It's 2020. Nothing gets missed here.
No.
They were doing things in a really methodical way. Like they had certain things that were set off to the side on the sidewalk, and once they saw that it was the right moment,
they jumped.
They would jump on it, and then when people who were part of the legitimate protest, I would get the idea here. I just want to make that part of it clear, because both you and I, in our respective pieces, went out of our way to say that these people did not belong here. They didn't. They really didn't. There's nobody who was involved, either from the police side or the protest side, who would dispute that those people didn't belong here.
I agree entirely, and I think the bottom line that both of you are talking about, we cannot let those people that didn't belong there and were there to disrupt, we cannot let them control the conversation about what we should be looking forward to and how this city needs to move forward with dealing with these problems.